All good. What is up, everyone? It's Ryan Moran here with my good pal Ryan Gallagher on R&R Talking Football today. Today we're going to assess in depth the 2021 New York Jets defense, a unit that struggled pretty greatly. Ryan, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I think that's an understatement. 32nd ranked defense. So a unit that has a big offseason in front of it, and hopefully
Absolutely.
drastic improvement heading into next year.
Absolutely. So I guess we'll just get right into it here with the edge defenders: Franco Meyers, Bryce Huff, Kyle Phillips. Obviously, Shaq Lawson played a ton of reps with the team this year. Tim Ward and Ronald Blair as well. So I guess we'll start out with JFM, who had a great year. If you want to go ahead.
Yeah, I'm actually I like Franco Meyers. I'm happy he's extended, and we don't have to worry about it in the offseason right now. I know he got a lot of heat on him, I guess, after he signed the contract about not producing.
Big
Uh,
plays, right?
yeah, I didn't really see that. I just seen a player who didn't
He was
really
so productive.
Yeah, more productive than the stat sheet would show for sure. A player on a bad defense who, in my opinion, definitely outperformed my expectations for him on the edge. Like it wasn't like we seen him kicked inside at all this year. He was just primarily an edge defender because we didn't have any other personnel to use. I do think going forward he should be used more like Armstead, like the Niners use Armstead. I think they're actually very similar players, but surprisingly, I think Franklin Myers is actually better on the edge than Armstead is. But granted, we still want the versatility going forward, and hopefully I think we will get that just going forward. But
Absolutely.
yeah, I think Franco Myers is one of the only few players on defense who actually played pretty well this year.
Completely agree. I remember when obviously Douglas's really first two additions, just because he was brought in the summer of 2019 on waivers there, were Braxton Berrios and Franco Myers. And we really liked both players at the time. Franco Myers had that good rookie year with the Rams on the edge, the year they made the Super Bowl. Obviously, he was hurt in 2019, didn't play. And then in 2020, you saw him, it was that 49ers game, second game of the year, where he really was just awesome. And that's really been the case since. Obviously, the different scheme this year, he was out on the edge more, especially with, we didn't even talk about Carl Lawson there before. I mean, his injury crushed this group and the defense as a whole. But JFM was great, especially to start the year. So many big plays, impact. And like you said, it's just the fact that the big plays and the stat sheet, weren't there. But like that last game against, I mean, Spencer Brown was playing well at right tackle for the Bills, and JFM was still like working him a lot of that game. And moving forward, if with Carl Lawson and hopefully another, big time edge defender acquired, on passing downs, we'll be able to kick JFM inside, where I think, it's just a luxury.
Yeah, and
He's, he's
for
a
him,
25-year-old player. He's going to be with the team the next 4 years on the contract. It's very exciting to have him on defense.
yeah, I mean, and if they could get out of him if everything goes wrong, but like Franco
Right.
Myers isn't that kind of guy. He's honestly a great dude, and I'm glad to have him on the team going forward. So,
Same here. So
but
you want to get into Bryce Huff?
yeah, Bryce Huff actually, someone that I actually really liked when we picked him up
Yep.
as UDFA. I don't think anybody had any expectations for him, even going back to last season. This year, he was obviously forced into a bigger role when Carl Lawson went down, and I thought he was doing great early in the season. Definitely a player who even took a step up from his rookie year to even this year, and I think that was one of the biggest things in our defense is completely falling apart was when he got hurt against the Patriots in the second matchup. Now, granted, there's other issues with the defense, which we'll touch upon, but this scheme is so relying on pressure that without Bryce Huff, we didn't really have anybody else that had any kind of juice or bend. And I thought Bryce Huff had. I mean, everyone knows the Tennessee game, but I thought honestly the Panthers game was impressive. The beginning part of the season stretch was really good, and I thought, and the reason why I think a lot of people know his name now is because when he wasn't on defense, we had no pass rush. So I think he was actually another one who kind of exceeded expectations. Now, granted, going forward, I don't think he's a starter, like a 3-down player, but I definitely think he's someone that's worth a package, like sub package, and definitely on third downs because he is fast and he does have bend. So,
Oh, for sure. We love Huff. Very great start to the year, especially that Titan game, like you alluded to. And I mean, his presence was definitely, felt when he went out with that injury. I mean, there was just no, like you said, no speed rusher, nobody on the edge who could really just bring some juice. He's fast getting after the quarterback. And I think you said it really right. Like moving forward with Carl Lawson and hopefully another big time edge, like he'd be a great third player to have there at that group to come in on passing downs. I mean, you see it in these games yesterday. I mean, depth up front, especially late in these games, like you need it. And I think Bryce Huff is great in that regard.
Yeah, totally agree. And if anything comes to, he could start a game or two. It's not the end of the world if something if
Right.
anything pops up. So let's focus on the rest of the unit because I know there's some underachieving players here. One player I think that we should bring up is everyone's. He's kind of I guess divided from Jets Twitter is Quinn Williams. Some people love him, some people don't like him. Some people want him traded, some people want him extended. So he's somewhere in the middle of all that. Uh, I personally, I'm a big fan of Quinn Williams. I will say, given his 2020 season, I was expecting another jump that I don't think he took, which I think is fair to say. At the same time, it's kind of going back to the Franco Meyers point. At a certain point of the season, the Jets just had no pass rush whatsoever, or any help next to them. And he did get hurt again, unfortunately. Like he got a shoulder issue against the Saints. Granted, the season was over by then, but I think it's worth noting after that point. He did have, I believe, six and a half sacks.
I think so.
And so I always think he's going to be a player with a pretty high floor. Some people treat him like he's an absolute bust. Like it's just not true. He's
Ridiculous.
He's right around like a top 10 defense tackle. He is top 5 in a lot of categories. Personally, I don't see that from every game, but we did see stretches of that, I think, especially throughout the 2020 season where we were kind of hoping and expecting that he would become an elite defense tackle and in that top 5 range. Now, I still think it can happen, but obviously he's not Aaron Donald. I mean, I think that's what people kind of wanted or expected.
Right.
And but I do think going forward, if Carl Lawson comes back, which is going to happen, and we add another edge rusher, I think you'll see a much different perspective on Quinn Williams.
Oh, 100%. I feel the same way with you on Q. That 2020 season was awesome. And I think we all expected a bigger year, obviously, with the scheme change and how that really fits his skill set best. It was just, I think the injury, you and I were texting about it a couple months ago. Like the injury he had in the spring was definitely a setback. What was it, like the broken foot, I think?
Yeah, broken foot where he missed all of training camp and basically
It's really tough. And I think you saw that at the beginning of the year. Like I guess he had a bit of a slow start, if you want to say, those first 2 games. But then like he went on a tear there, getting a ton of sacks. He's got the ability, in my opinion, to be a top 5, 3-tech defensive tackle with more, acclimation to the scheme. And like you said, Carl Lawson, another pass rusher on the edge, and putting JFM inside. I think that front 4, Quinn would just absolutely work moving forward. And he's still young, so.
Yep. And listen, not to completely give him like we want him to be double teamed up too, but just I was watching the Bills game like week 18, and at that point in the season we didn't really have anybody. Like Quinn Williams is double teamed on every single play.
Yep.
So, like teams are basically realizing that we're not going to let one guy just beat us, because if you give Quinn a one-on-one, more than likely he's going to win his matchup more times than not. So.
Yep. I just wanted to talk about Kyle Phillips quick before we went into all the D tackles. Obviously, like his 3 years with the Jets as an undrafted free agent, he's made his impact felt. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Especially on the edge against the run, where I think the Jets kind of struggled a little bit this year. Like he definitely made a difference there. And as a restricted free agent, I think he should be back, and with a healthy offseason, could be a really key piece of this D line next year.
Yeah, I mean, I think you basically covered it. He's not really a flashy player,
Right?
But he's more than effective. I do think his best season was his rookie season. Obviously, he got hurt after that, so maybe he wasn't back at full speed. He might be a better fit in like a 3-4 defense, but since he's a restricted free agent, there's no reason to be letting him walk, especially with how our run defense performed this season. We need all the help we can get to stop the run. So
exactly, and he can keep guys fresh on first and second down. You know what I mean? Like Carl Lawson, for example. So the rest of the D tackles, obviously, we talked about Q. We'll get into Foley Fatukasi, Sheldon Rankins, and to a lesser extent, obviously, Nathan Shepard and Jonathan Marshall. So if you want to go with Foley.
Yeah. Oh, I know Foley's your guy.
Yep.
Me and you both big fans of him for years now. I do think he is leaving, unfortunately. But granted, I don't want to say it's for the best, but just based on the scheme we're going to be running, it probably is for the best. Granted, if we do sign him back, that'd be great. I just didn't like the way he was deployed much here. I think that was some of the issues with the run game on top of other things, but just not having Foley in his natural kind of like
Position.
center. Yeah, just kind of playing him too much 3-tech and kind of just always pushing him up the field, like one gapping. that's not like he still made some effective plays here and there, but he was much, much better just as a true nose tackle in a 3-4 defense, and it was pretty evident this season. So I wish him nothing but the best, and we're gonna miss him. But in a scheme like this, I don't think it's really gonna be hard to replace what he did just based on this season.
Right.
Just touching on the rest of them, I thought Sheldon Rankins had a couple good games. Obviously, he kind of is a little bit of a liability in the run for the most part, but some of the explosion off the snap is crazy still to this day. He had a couple like really kind of like moments where he just like he's causing pressure and he's like making quarterbacks like step up and stuff, but we just don't have anything like behind him getting there as well. So it's just one of those things where like if we actually have edge pressure on the side, I think Rankins would have had a much more
Effective year.
yeah, much more effective year. But I mean, I do wonder if I just wonder what the plan is, because if the Jets do sign another big edge rusher, not that they play the same position, I just don't know how much. And it's always going to be a key to Gala, yeah, just to keep on adding to the for the defensive line. I just don't know how much resources we're actually going to put into it. If that makes sense. Like I'm pretty sure Rankins is going to be back, but I wouldn't like guarantee 100% that he's back either.
Yeah, I agree with you on Foley and Rankins. Quickly with Foley, obviously the last 3 years was one of the Jets' best players. Really made a name for himself as a run defender. And like we said, I mean, despite the scheme change, like he still had some very great moments. The Buccaneer game, I thought he was awesome when he came back healthy. And obviously the scheme doesn't really suit him best, but he's still such a good player and would love to have him back. If not, definitely wish him the best. And with Rankins, I mean, still, like you said, has that explosiveness as a pass rusher, built low to the ground. Obviously his veteran presence, I think, helps, coming from the Saints where he won for 5 years. I do think he will be back, but like it wouldn't be a complete shock if they did release him and maybe, try and use the money that he's owed somewhere else just because there isn't out the contract.
Yeah, I think that was a good point. Actually, you mentioned like the leadership from Rankins. He seemed like he was kind of a locker room leader, and he kind of steered the ship every time after the games, whether it went good or bad, and it was mostly bad this season.
Right, and Foley was the vocal leader too.
Yeah, I think he was a team captain, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, he was.
Let's just touch on the other two really quick. Nathan Shepard, I think we both mentioned it. He played a lot of snaps this year, which was kind of a shocker. I know what the scheme wants guys fresh in and out, but Shepard was playing I think as much snaps as Rankins, if I'm not mistaken. It was right near there. So just crazy high amount of snaps. I will say toward the end of the season, he definitely got much better, and that seems to be the story of his career so far. Like he kind of starts off really, really, really slow and bad, and then he kind of levels out toward the middle of the season and the end. But to start the year, just so many penalties every single game. I don't think he's gonna be back. And Jonathan Marshall didn't really play that much. I do remember him being active for just a couple games. I think he had maybe one flash play.
Right, I think he did.
Yeah, I can't remember. I know he was active against Tennessee. I think it came later on in the season where he made like a tackle for loss. It was one of the last 3 weeks of the season. It might have been Tampa.
I think you're right.
But yeah, I mean the Jets obviously like him. He's
a great athlete.
Yeah, the athlete. He's just explosion. You can tell. And this year was kind of development. So maybe next year going into camp, getting more weight on and just a stronger frame, maybe he'll actually produce and be part of the rotation next year.
Right. Yeah, like you said, Shepard, definitely levels out as the season goes on, but just the penalties and just the lack of big impact plays. And then with Marshall, like you definitely hope for development just because there is so much untapped potential, athletically speaking. It's really off the charts, actually.
Yeah.
So you hope in off season maybe he can be a depth piece of the D line next year. And overall, I think we really said it. Adding Carl Lawson and a big edge to this defensive front would go a long way, and just the tackle depth.
Yeah, I don't think the D line's that far away. It just kind of the injuries screwed us with Lawson and Huff, and then you can also mention Curry. So like we lost three of our best edge rushers that we thought we were going to have going into the season. Combined, they played literally 6 games, I think, if you combine all 3. So that it's just not enough. But I do think that this line's in better shape than people think. But at the same time, it needs one more edge because we don't exactly know how effective Carl Lawson is going to be. Granted, we're seeing some nice examples of people coming off Achilles, Cam Akers, CJ Umazat, what's the tight end from the Bengals. Yeah, I cannot pronounce his name, but even he's having a career year. So like it seems like the modern medicine and science is kind of helping people come back and just kind of look the same player, which is exciting. And obviously, he has 13 months to come back from this because
Right.
it happened in August, so plenty of time.
Absolutely. So we'll get into the linebackers now. Obviously, C.J. Mosley, Quincy Williams, Jared Davis, Shawn Phillips, and the two rookies who made the transition from safety, and Jamie and Sherwin and Hampson Nasruddin. I guess you want to kick it off here with C.J.
Yeah, I will say as a unit, I thought this was the worst unit on the team. Safety, I'm not giving a pass, but at least we lost Marcus May and Joyner as starters, so like there's some reason behind it. Linebacker, I think CJ Mosley was kind of the only good player. Obviously Quincy Williams, but I'll touch on him after. I thought
Right.
Mosley had a really good start to the year, and then he kind of got injured. You could tell, I think he was playing through it, but he was just kind of covering for a lot of people and just kind of making sure people line up here and there. So he was kind of navigating all these people all over the place, and just you could tell. I think it was taking a little bit of a toll on him, but he still showed. I think just the type of player he is, and I'm pretty sure with some more help and more talent on his defense, you'll see a much more effective Mosley. I think he did miss a few tackles toward the middle of the season and end, but there were still some high end plays for sure. And I'm kind of excited to have him back because obviously we didn't really have him for 2 seasons. So and we need him based on our linebacker core right now and our uncertainties heading into the offseason with all the needs we need. There's no reason to be getting rid of Mosley. Obviously, people mentioned that before the season, but just based on how the season went, I don't see a scenario how you can get rid of CJ Mosley.
Yeah, I'm with you. I thought Mosley, for someone who didn't play football for 2 straight years, and it takes time to get back in the football shape. Like you said, he definitely started fast. He's the leader of the unit just from a communication standpoint. Pre-snap, he knows where to be, and he definitely still showed that. Obviously it's a scheme that he was never really too familiar with, and he still, held his own. And he's definitely a big piece of this defense for 2022. So we'll go with Quincy Williams next, someone who was claimed through waivers. Obviously, we talked about it before with Barrios and JFM. Quincy, I thought, brought a ton of speed to the defense, which was definitely needed. He's a run and hit linebacker. Obviously, at times the tackling was inconsistent, which is frustrating, but I do think he's, got some potential moving forward. He's going to be spending, I think, most, if not all, the offseason with CJ Mosley. I want to say he said at the end of the season press conference. So I'm hoping, just more consistency, more time with the scheme. Obviously, you get with the team in late August, early September, like he did. You're behind a little bit, but he's still, like, when he was benched there for a couple games, like, the unit lacked speed. I think that's fair to say. And I think it's like a third linebacker. I feel good about Quincy Williams, honestly.
Yeah, just kind of a surprise acquisition, obviously through waivers, and then he ended up being very clearly our second best linebacker. Made a couple big splash plays. Definitely is a hard hitter for sure. Caused a couple fumbles, and he had some good games. He did for sure, but like you said, there's just some of the run fits are just, and it's not just him, but it just kind of it's a routine problem. And he is kind of in the center of that. Like he just kind of overshoots things. He's like the aggressiveness almost sometimes causes him issues, but at the same time, he's going to be on the team next year for sure. I don't know if I want him starting, but I want to see how the offseason goes for sure. And I wouldn't mind him starting for a couple games. I just don't want him to be a full-time starter again.
Right. And he's at least a good role player. Like, if someone needs to fill in with injuries, obviously, I think he is someone you feel good about counting on. Jared Davis, obviously someone who I guess we were both kind of surprised at the signing right away in free agency. Was up and down with the Lions, and it was really a lot more down than up from him this year, I would say. Against the run especially, there were some really low moments, and it didn't work out. That's the best way to say it.
Yeah, I mean, we'll try to get the benefit of the doubt for the signing because obviously the talent, first round pick, Salah and this coaching staff have a history of kind of developing linebackers and getting the max, but this was just complete failure. Obviously, injury is one thing, but when he came back, he was just terrible. There was like a play against the Bills where like he's running in the wrong direction and they score a touchdown. It just crazy. Obviously, he's not coming back, so and whatever. It's not really that big of a deal, but
Right. So Shawn Phillips was someone at some point in the offseason he was acquired. I can't remember exactly when. I think it was in the summer at some point. Somebody who had a role on special teams. was a contributor, and I guess maybe that's something to expect from him moving forward, just with Brant Boyer's unit.
Yeah. Actually, I think he was pretty impactful as a special teamer. He actually came in for a couple games. I think I remember him in Carolina week 1.
Yep.
He had like a fumble recovery down the goal line in Denver. Just someone I don't think anybody expected to get snaps, but just he does have value. The versatility is there, and he'll be here next year.
Absolutely. So lastly, we'll just talk about Sherwin and Nashville Dean. Obviously, 2 safeties who converted to linebacker, day 3 picks. Really, I guess they were kind of early on in the season, just with some of the injuries. They had a role. Really didn't necessarily see much on defense from either one. And I guess not a ton really on special teams either. It's a big offseason for them. It would be a luxury if one of them, let alone both, could take some steps in the right direction with more time and acclimation. What are your expectations with those two?
Yeah, I was kind of disappointed by these two because at one point in training camp, both these guys were starting next to Mosley. So and obviously some part of that was because Jared Davis got hurt in training camp, but still, like they had plenty of time in camp. It wasn't like they were just thrown in. And Sherwood tears his Achilles. That's just unfortunate.
Right.
But he got hurt week 1 too, which not a lot of people forget. So we actually missed all that time until he came back. I believe he only played like a game and a half or something. It wasn't very long, so we didn't really get to see him. I think Sal and them do like him because they kind of gave him high praise in training camp. And if you just kind of read or watched the interviews and stuff, we didn't get to see it. Obviously, another player who unfortunately suffered an Achilles injury, so hopefully he comes back and is good to go. Najee probably the biggest disappointment because I really liked him when we drafted him. Granted, I know it takes time to especially convert positions, but there was plenty of opportunity for him to get on the field, especially toward the later part of the season with how our unit was playing. So hopefully in the offseason, he kind of just, gets it together and has some kind of role in year 2 because
they both kind of complement each other. Like Sherwood, I think against the run could be a contributor. He's a physical hard hitter. And then Nashville Dean just has that reputation of coverage. Like just to be able to add some sort of skill set would be nice. Now, I think to this position group overall, we both agree. And I think probably every Jet fan would say, whether it's through free agency or the draft, they're going to have to add a starting caliber linebacker.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you might need an overhaul at some point, but for this offseason, I think you're just looking at one. I mean, some people can make the argument, is Mosley part of the future in terms of like, is he going to be here from 3 years from now? But obviously, the Jets have so many holes. We're not fixing everything in one offseason. So, but yeah, definitely one linebacker needs to be added.
Absolutely. So we'll get into the corner position, a group who, was probably touted as like the worst, universally coming into the season. And for a young group filled with, day 3 draft picks and undrafted free agents, Bryce Hall, Brandon Eccles, Michael Carter II, Javelin Guidry, Isaiah Dunn, and obviously we'll talk about Justin Hardy as well. The group surpassed expectations. Youth movement, different for the Jets at corner. Obviously, they've gone the free agent route so many times, and I would say it was a good start for a lot of these guys this year.
Yeah, I think it's like you said, this was definitely the biggest surprise of the season in terms of heading into training camp. Forget the preseason and the regular season. A lot of people were just kind of pushing and demanding for a signing just to get a veteran in this group. And this surprisingly enough, this group ended up being probably our best unit on defense. And you can give them a lot of credit because there wasn't a lot of pass rush, so they were kind of covering all day. And at a certain point, I guess you do have to question how much teams are actually throwing at them, especially when they're beating the Jets by a lot and they're running on them pretty successfully. But to each their own. A lot of them are rookies. Brandon Eccles, 6th-round pick, starting every game he was healthy. Michael Carter in there as a rookie as well at the slot position, and then Bryce Hall in year 2. So a lot of them, I think, Eccles is probably the biggest surprise for me in terms of actually being pretty decent and someone I actually feel comfortable with going forward as at least a depth player. I don't think we definitely didn't have that for years where we had no depth and nobody we liked at corner. So that's a nice change. Michael Carter is also a nice draft pick. I know the Jets, they loved him. A lot of that came out when we drafted him, and they were definitely right about that because he showed a lot, especially whatever you wanted to do in coverage. He blitzed a lot, got a couple sacks there. And Bryce Hall took another step in year 2. I thought he was probably our best cover guy. Obviously, you would like the interceptions to be up from him. I think he recorded 0 this year. But at the same time, that might come when we actually get a pass rush most of these games and just by another year in the system, I think. So hopefully that comes. But between the 3, that I just mentioned, and then even Guidry. I didn't think there's much of a drop off even when Guidry came in for Carter. Like he helped to win the Jacksonville game. Depending on, I know people were kind of up and down, but got the goal line stop. So overall, like I feel pretty good about 4 out of 7 of these guys going forward, which is at least we have depth here. We can say.
Right. Yeah, I would say with Hall, like he's at least a good starting corner that we feel good about, has good length, good in coverage. I think in terms of pass breakups, he ranked in like the top 5 in the league. You feel great about him. Just obviously knew he always had the talent. It was just getting back on the field. And this year he was really good. Feel great about Hall. Eccles, like for a 6th round pick, like you said, to start from week 1. And there was like, I guess you realize it a little bit when he wasn't out there with the injury in the middle of the season. Someone who's great in coverage, great, on the football, had 2 interceptions, obviously the last few games. Hopefully in off season for him, he gets, more acclimated, gets bigger and, can continue to grow. Like you said, to at least know we have someone like Eccles feels really good. Just to count on guys in terms of depth and whatnot. Obviously Michael Carter II in the slot to start from week 1 as well, was really good, especially to start the season. Was very effective in coverage, made plays on the ball. Like you said, in run support as a blitzer, he was very effective from the slot. Guidry, the Titan game, the play Guidry made really stands out to me for a smaller guy. Someone who's got versatility to play in the slot and outside, who's gotten good experience as a UDFA in 2 years with the team. Feel good about Guidry. Yeah, I mean, I think, in the draft, I'd like to add another corner. And, I feel good about these guys moving forward.
Yeah, I do think they will probably add a veteran this offseason.
Okay.
We'll see what they do. But I wouldn't be surprised if they just kind of double dip here. Not address it in round 1. I don't think that's happening.
Right.
But if I do feel like they might add someone that they trust as a veteran, and then kind of depending on how the board falls, they'll just add another one to the unit.
Possibly in like the 2nd or 3rd round, right?
Yeah.
And then obviously Justin Hardy on special teams, another leader like we've talked about. Someone who just plays hard on special teams for Brant Boyer's unit. A Pro Bowl caliber player on special teams. And I feel good just about him really being one of the core contributors for Boyer's unit moving forward.
Yeah, I think that was what he's brought in for. So
absolutely. And then we'll finish it off here with the safety position. Obviously, a year in which I think there were probably 8 to 10 safeties who played for the Jets. Obviously, Marcus May's injury was frustrating. Ashton Davis got on the field. You saw him make an impact as the season went on. Obviously, Jason Pinnock was put into a role at safety the final few games. Elijah Riley was picked up there in like November, and he was started. He was called upon to be a starter. And obviously, Will Parks at the end of the season. That was really the most of the group for the last couple months of the season. So I guess if you want to just start, obviously May's injury, I guess is not too much to really talk about. If you want to start with Ashton.
Yeah, I mean, we can also bring up the point here. I think a lot of the old Jet teams, when we're talking about having nice depth and stuff, this is kind of the only year I believe we actually like kind of rebuilded and played a lot of the young guys. So I feel like that's going to kind of benefit us going forward, especially in the secondary. Now, not saying they're all going to be starters because that's not realistic, but the safety unit was definitely tested. Like every week, it felt like we had a new guy out there at some point during the season. Ashton Davis was someone we took in round 3 and then got hurt in his rookie year. He did play quite a lot this year. I think he started week 4 and then kind of on. I think he had 2 interceptions. I think both against the Dolphins. But overall, I think kind of disappointing. Like he had a lot of opportunity, especially this year. Like we're talking about, we went through a bunch of safeties, so definitely had the time to kind of take that next step. And I do think he got better in coverage. I'll say that. But as a starter, in the 3rd round, we're kind of hoping that, and especially with how the safety unit played out for us in terms of us trading Adams and Marcus May going down, kind of needed Ashton Davis to kind of step up into a starter role. And I don't think anybody would tell you they feel confident with Ashton Davis going forward as a starter. With that being said, at this point, I just hope that he just rounds out his game, and if he's called upon next year, hopefully he can come in and play like minimum snaps at this point.
Right.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's all good. I was just going to say with Davis, obviously the injuries have been frustrating his first years, but like you said, if he can just take on like a specialist role as someone who can cover, like I think, we'll definitely take that as an asset to the defense because he is a tremendous athlete.
Yeah. And that's why I hope that he could turn it into something more. He still can. He's still a young player, but
Right.
at this point, I don't think anyone's confident that's going to happen. Pinnock's kind of interesting because I think a lot of people actually liked him the best out of the corners we drafted this past year, and he didn't really get any obviously cornerback reps, and then didn't really know what was going on because you didn't hear much during the season, and then kind of toward the end of the year, we found out that he kind of transitioned to safety, and apparently he played pretty well the last 3 games. Obviously, the play that comes to mind is the pass deflection deep down the field against the Jaguars, and obviously he had a goal line stand too. I think on Trevor kind of running an option play there. So that's nice to see. It's good. It's kind of fun and cool to see all of our corners, late round corners, get on the field and play and do pretty well at some point during the season. So if Pinnock could be, a depth piece, like a number 3 safety going forward, that would be fantastic. Elijah Riley, someone you mentioned, I think the Jets kind of really like him. I don't know about as a starter, but apparently they were trying to get him off the Eagles practice squad for like the last year and a half, something like that, or they were intrigued by him. He obviously got a ton of playing time. He got kind of suffered a scary concussion at one point. Oh, luckily he was okay. And he definitely helped. He was definitely physical. Like he definitely helped in the run game. Obviously kind of a little bit of a liability in the pass game, but where you got him in the season, like you didn't, you just basically got him off practice squad. And he was starting like 5 days later. So I think he did the best he could under those circumstances. And he's definitely a player you room out to camp because, and we try to figure out, how we can actually kind of round out this group and just kind of get consistent starters.
Absolutely. I think you said it with both Pinnock and Riley. Pinnock, he is pretty big. And, like you said, if he could be a good third safety, like you definitely take it just to round out the depth, as you stated. Showed some good things in the final 4 games. And then with Riley, like you said, they clearly liked him. He helped in the running game. And, you just hope with more time, obviously, being acquired, late in the season, mid to late season, more time, with Saleh and Ulbrich in the scheme, he can as well just be an asset to the secondary. Now, I do think 2 safeties are going to have to be acquired this offseason, whether that's 2 in free agency, 2 in the draft, or 1 in free agency, 1 in the draft. I think ideally they need someone who, like, I think of Jordan Whitehead so much, like someone who's so physical down in the box. And then I think someone on the back end who can either cover a lot of ground or has ball production at the free safety position.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think whether it's free agency or the draft, they're going to have 2 new starters at the safety position next year. And just to round out, since we talked about the entire unit, I'm looking at like at least 4 or 5 new starters. Granted, I know it's kind of difficult because Jets have to really focus on getting Zach Wilson the best they can surround him with, going into year 2, because we need to make sure that he takes the next step and, just kind of, because we're looking at the AFC right now and the quarterbacks in here are absolutely insane. Now, granted, I don't want to just compare that because the NFL is a complete team game. So like you can't just focus on one side of the ball, but the Jets have to prioritize the offense over the defense. So they can't get every position in need. But at the same time, it's not unrealistic to think with our cap space, we can't be adding I'll say at least 3 starters, but I'm looking for 4 as the number.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think between the cap space and free agency and the premium draft capital, I would say 1 edge. I think we'd both agree. 2 safeties, and then I guess your choice between whether it be corner, linebacker, or D tackle. And you're looking at probably D tackle depth with the way that they rotate. So
yeah, realistically, I think it's ended up being 4. Maybe one of them doesn't get replaced because I wasn't even considering defense tackle, but that technically is someone has to start. So.
Back or not back, right?
Yeah, and but just going, I mean that's really it, right? Just going forward.
Yeah, that's really it. And I guess if you want to just finish like we did last week with the offense with the Senior Bowl roster that the Jets coaching staff's going to have, I don't know if do you have that by any chance on you? Or
I get it. What do you,
if you wanted to talk about a couple of our like favorites that they're going to have between D-line, linebacker, and corner, or DB. Okay. So I'll start out with a couple of mine. I think at the linebacker position, they got a couple of good ones in Chad Muma, Brian Asamoah, Terrell Bernhard, and obviously Devin Lloyd as well. We talked about linebacker being the position of need on this defense, and I think there's a good chance in like the middle rounds of the draft they're able to acquire one of them. On the D line, a couple I like: Arnold from Penn State, Travis Jones, the Minnesota pass rusher. I can't pronounce his name. Najee Sanders, of course, I think in the second round, like if they're not able to get an edge rusher in the first, is definitely a good option. And then probably, I guess, Perry Winfrey as well from Oklahoma. But I don't know if I see the Jets investing in a D tackle in the first few rounds of the draft. And then at DB, a couple of the favorites, the two Baylor safeties, of course, Jalen Petre and JT Woods. And then at corner, I would have to say Kobe Bryant is like a possible third or fourth round option.
Yeah, he might have to go higher, I think. I was looking at him.
Yeah, he could.
Yeah, because clearly everyone knows his teammate Gardner Sauce Johnson, but I thought he was really, really good too. Like that kind of went under the radar. And I think at the Senior Bowl, he's gonna be one of those risers that you just kind of see. Yeah, you mentioned a lot of the guys I liked. Another one I'm looking at is actually from the Lions team. Is the Clemson corner, Mario Goodrich. I just feel like the tackling is something we need desperately. How many our corners tackling this year was actually a huge problem. We didn't really mention some of them, obviously more so Eccles, but at the same time, anyone that replaced Eccles during the season as well, it just seemed like that part of the field was a complete liability in the run game. So that might be something the Jets are prioritizing as well. Both even the Lions again, but the Georgia corner, Darion Kendrick. Like there just seems to be a lot. The Senior Bowl this year is really, really stacked from both rosters. So this is really, really important for the Jets to go down here and identify. They're going to end up falling in love with a couple of these guys. Right. It wouldn't surprise me if half of our draft has Senior Bowl affiliated with it. A guy you mentioned that everyone knows. I'm just wondering if the Jets would do this, if they do end up trading for a receiver and they still have our first round picks. And granted, maybe just hypothetically say they get a tackle at 4. I do wonder if Devin Lloyd's at 10, would the Jets consider him? Because my philosophy, I kind of wanted to split the picks between offense and defense. Right. I don't want to go double defense. Like I don't think that's acceptable in my scenario. Like if Kayvon falls to 4, we're throwing in the card. Like easily to throw in the card. Other than that, I'm pretty sure they're going to take a tackle.
Yes,
could be wrong. And then I'd be in this case like Devin Lloyd at 10 might like it's appealing to me at this point in this scenario.
Right. Yeah, I definitely get that.
In the Senior Bowl, so they're going to end up falling in love with one of these guys.
Right, and truthfully, like it's such a great opportunity for Saleh and Ulbrich to really like the first step for getting this defense going in the right direction. So, any other final thoughts?
No, it's really. I just hope we get some of these guys on the Jets, and hopefully get a player as good as Debo as like the Niners found.
Oh, no. Dre Greenlaw was also there that year when they got him.
Yeah,
so
just go down there and like obviously you find out a lot about these people. You find out like their practice habits, like because it's one thing to kind of like obviously film is really, really important. That's the main thing that gets them down here. But more often than not, like sometimes you kind of see how people are like in the real work environment. Like you get 6-7 days down here, you put them through all your drills, you're going to see how they react. And then hopefully, this is a great opportunity for the Jets and the Lions. So
you find out the character of the individual too, which is huge. So
yeah, that's very big, especially going with everything that happens around the league. So but yeah, I'm excited for it. I think it starts next Tuesday.
Yep. Yeah. So it'll be a lot of fun. Definitely worth following. And obviously we'll have our mock draft either tomorrow or Wednesday, I guess. And then later on in the week, we'll of course have our, general NFL with the reviews from the awesome divisional weekend and the previews of championship weekend. So anything else you got, Ryan?
No, I'm looking forward to it, but we'll talk to you guys soon.
Yep.